everybody, and you're very welcome to the latest episode of the South Tip Arts Podcast. Well, with a quick Google search, one can see how much has been written, sung and spoken about the story of Brigid Cleary, who was wrongly coined the last witch burned in Ireland. Her murder displayed a deep suspicion of anyone who was a little bit free-thinking in a society that was kept in fear by religious dogma and taught to be suspicious of our country's pagan past. The horror took place in Ballybadley in County Tipperary in 1895, and since then has horrified and captured the imagination of many. Mahony is a local writer and actor, and is one of the people who has been captured by Brigid's story. In 2018, Eve unveiled her one-woman show, which describes the life and events which led to the death of Brigid Cleary. She's accused of being a changeling and ultimately was burned to death at the hands of her husband in Tipperary in 1895. The character of Brigid is the main narrator throughout the performance, but her story is also told by a host of other characters. She tells the bittersweet story of her life as a successful businesswoman living in a patriarchal society and the details which led to her tragic death. It's a moving play that brings forth a whole slew of issues: inequality, tradition and superstition, progression and ignorance, group mentality and individual steadfastness, and the role of women in early 20th century rural Ireland. Eve was the recipient of the Best Actress Award at the Galway Fringe Festival in 2018 for her portrayal of Brigid. Recently, I caught up with Eve to talk to her about her most recent performances, which were at Clonmel Arts Festival, and her plans to perform the piece at Tipperary County Museum as part of the Culture Night celebrations for 2019. So Eve, the story of Brigid Cleary is endlessly fascinating, and a lot of people in the Tipperary area are probably familiar with the story, but for anybody who isn't, can you just give a brief outline of who she was?
Okay, well, Brigid Cleary was from Clonmel in County Tipperary, where she was a dressmaker and milliner, and she also was a hen woman. She kept hens who laid eggs and she sold those on. So she was a very entrepreneurial woman, a woman before her time. She was part of the new wave of Irish people who had a very good education, and she had a career and she had very good training. She had a trade, which her parents paid for, so she would mind them in their old age.
Okay. I read somewhere that she was an apprentice to a dressmaker or something. Is that
yes,
right?
in Clonmel.
Yeah.
So, and that's how she met her first husband, her only husband, in fact, Michael Cleary. He was working as a cooper, so training as a cooper, and so they met, and the match was made, and they went she went from being Brigid Boland to Mrs. Michael Cleary. And so they settled in the little village of Clonmel, which is small and rural. They had a lovely little new cottage with a slate roof, 2 bedrooms. There was jealousy about the fact that they had that cottage because it was a labourer's cottage, so it should have belonged to a labourer. Now her father was a retired labourer, and that's how she got it. But they had to pay rent, and the previous tenants couldn't afford to pay rent, so they got evicted and she went into it.
Okay.
So
they were quite well off as...
She had £20 underneath the bed when she died.
Wow.
Yeah, but that went missing after she died.
But that would have been a whole pile of money in those days.
Yeah, that could have bought like a house nearly. It would have paid for 4 tickets to America. It was a lot of money, and like she was thrifty. She was very well dressed. She made her own clothes, being a milliner. She had a very thriving business. And she was 26 when she was killed, but she had been married for 8 years, but there was no children.
She was 26.
She was only 26.
Wow.
Yeah. She'd been married for 8 years, there was no children, so that counted against her, whether, it was...
Also, people were sort of making connotations to the fact that...
Yeah, and there was also the fact that, fairy people, changelings, couldn't have children.
Okay.
And so there was also a rumour going around that Michael's mother, she spent a whole night with the fairies when she was pregnant with him. So that's why they couldn't have fairies. So there was kind of just vicious gossip going around the neighbourhood. Yeah.
So when did you hear about this story initially?
I actually read the book The Burning of Brigid Cleary by Angela Burke, and it was where I got a lot of my background information about the story. And I read that when I was about 19. Now in Tipperary, up to quite recently, it wasn't talked about.
I know, and it was 1895.
1895.
Which is not that long ago.
Yeah, no, my kind of grandmother's generation probably wouldn't have mentioned it at all. My mother's, she mentions it, but she wouldn't broadcast the fact. But actually, I've just done a couple of shows in Kinsale, and one of the audience members was the great granddaughter.
Oh, really?
Of one of the people implicated in quite unfairly in the case. His name was Gainey. He was the fairy doctor. He provided herbs that Michael later force-fed Brigid. They held her to the bed and forced her to drink it. It was concoction mixed with milk. He was later arrested, but then he was kind of let go because he just kind of provided herbs. That was his...
So what was a fairy doctor then as a...
It was just somebody that provided medicinal herbs and like fairy herbs or whatever, but herbs do have medicinal qualities, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And Brigid's own mother was actually known to have a way with herbs as well. So, and it's gone very in vogue now to be...
Absolutely,
kind of be having a few leaves in your tea. And
so it was the reading of the book that inspired you to kind of look at the character further.
Yeah. It's always been a story that's, always kind of been at the back of my mind. And then just about 4 years ago, I started writing the original play. And then I put on the original play and it was okay. And then I got very lucky and I did a course with Michael Murphy. He's... well-known Irish
he's
director.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And he was a lovely man.
A lovely man. I spoke to him when I was on the radio. He was a lovely man. Yeah.
And so he kind of mentored me through the rewriting, and so about 7 or 8 drafts in, I got kind of a good half hour out of it, and then I just had to expand it. So it's now 45 to 50 minutes. So it's enough for a one-woman show and for such a heavy topic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I tried to inject some of her personality, her quirks, because she was a bold character. And it's not all doom and gloom, because she was quite a bold character and a lovely kind of... to do what she was doing... because she didn't walk that fine line in society that probably kind of counted against her. She was friends with the local land grabber. Now, a land grabber at that time, he lived in farms whose tenants had been evicted.
Okay.
So, and he was a Protestant, and he was a handsome young man who was married to a woman who was 10 years older than him. They had 2 daughters. And so, but shopkeepers in the town, they refused to serve him. And so she used to buy him groceries and give it to them. So that's actually counted against her. It counted against her too. So in a way, she suffered for her beliefs. And then she got sick, and to be fair to her husband and to her father, they did take care of her for a couple of weeks. She got really sick. She had influenza. And she was extremely sick, was sick for 2 weeks. The doctor was called for, but he was very fond of the drink. So it took them 3 times to go walk in and out of to Feather to get in. The priest was called for. He kind of gave her the last rites. That's what you do in those times. So, she was written off, more or less. So they were really at their wits' end. And so, but then this old fella, Jack Dunn, who had a begrudging against her, he came down and from the mountains where he lived.
Right.
And he was kind of known to be this old Shanachie, this storyteller, and he owed her money.
So it was him that sowed the seed.
Yeah, he more or less initiated, and he said to Michael, it's 3 days past, you should have gone to see Gainey, the fairy doctor. So, and then that's why, so then Michael got herbs and kind of tried to get her to drink them, but she was just she said no, and she kind of got it away from me, and then, like, as time went on, he became abusive towards her and held her to the bed. They forced her to drink the herbs, and then they hit her and held her over the fire, a low burning fire, and then they threw urine over her, and then it just came to a head. Yeah, it's cruelty. 3 days, and then then towards her the last night, the night that she died, she was feeling better, so she was brought in to.
So she was actually recovering.
She was recovering.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and all her family were there, and so her husband gave her bread, and she wouldn't. She would just about take a bit of it, and then she finished it, and she was like, no, and then then there was a bit of a thing. She turned to him and said, "Your own mother was with the fairies, so don't be calling me one." So then that's what caused him to kill her and throw an oil lamp over her and burn her to death.
Wow, so he just set her on fire?
Well, he hit her and knocked her unconscious, tried to get her to eat the bread, used to burn a log. Then he got the oil lamp and threw it over her, and then after she had died...
Isn't it amazing that nobody stood up and said, stop this craziness?
They're terrified. He was mad. He went mad in that kind of... I think he personally had a nervous breakdown from everything that had happened.
Yeah.
And that was just the kind of... She knew probably how to needle him. She's probably quite rightly pissed off at him. Yeah. And she's like, oh yeah, I know how to hurt you.
Yeah, with that kind of treatment. I don't blame her. But, so did it result in a trial then? And did anybody ever...
Yeah, they buried her in a shallow grave, and then himself and Jack Dunn went down to the priest the following morning, and the priest brought them to the police station, and she was reported missing originally, saying that she had gone with the fairies. That was the original. So a search was put out for her. And then this Detective Inspector Wansborough was brought in, and he came and, asked a few questions, and he questioned the priest about what Michael had said in confession, but the priest wouldn't tell him.
Yeah.
So he couldn't understand this. So then bit by bit he pieced together the case, and Hannah, her cousin, who was a good friend of hers, she was with her throughout the throughout her sickness, and she was there that night. I think he kind of threatened her and bullied her into telling him what happened, because she was probably didn't have just the courage to stand up to them, because she had 7 children. She was quite rightly afraid that they'd turn against her in the end.
Wow.
Yeah. And so her husband got 20 years, served 17, and emigrated to Montreal. All the other ringleaders, her 3 cousins, Jack Dunn and her father, got between 6 months to 6 years.
Wow, and they all did
time
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's heartbreaking, because her father was just like...
And then everybody just sort of zipped the lips and nobody ever spoke of it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Han ended up in a workhouse, I think. Due to the shame, but the fairy doctor, his great-granddaughter, came in, and he was telling me that they changed their name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to Gahan.
Disassociate
because he lost his reputation, and it was quite unfair that but it was unfair on her. She's buried now in Pauper's graveyard. So.
And do you know where her grave is?
Yeah, it's in there's in Clonmel in the village. It's in a pauper's part of the graveyard, so it's only got like a jagged stump to mark the grave.
Oh, that's really sad.
It is.
To take on such a character in such a story, it's really brave, thing to do. And it's come through this process, as you said, but like to take that on as a story, it's a really brave thing to do. And where did you even begin? Where do you begin with a story like that?
Oh well, I don't know how I did it, to be honest. I'm writing a second play at the moment, and another kind of true to life character, and I'm just thinking, how did I do it? Because it's tough. It's so tough. It's just to find her voice, and her voice might And because there are a couple of other characters in the play, a few other characters, and I had to find their voice too, but she was the most dominant one. So it was just kind of a bit of devilment in her, and, you know, I wanted to make her seem human and, you know, full of life and love and anger and kind of all this boldness that was in her and ambition and...
Quite probably it's feminist in some ways feminist, for her time.
Very ahead of her time. Like, she was some woman ahead of her time, and she was foolhardy. She was kind of friends with this kind of land grabber during the land wars, and her death had so much repercussions for Ireland's political history as well, because Ireland were looking for home rule. Then in the kind of when the British got, you know, sniffed this information about Ireland believing in fairies, they hopped on it.
Of course,
yeah. They're like, well, the Irish aren't able to govern themselves, they believe in fairies, and then kind of there's this herd in America, and they're like, oh, Ireland's, you know, land of fairies, you know, they killed a woman. But it wasn't like, before there had been a couple of incidences, but it had mainly been children who had been kind of maybe mentally disabled children who had, you know, their parents were said, oh, right, well, a changeling had come over them, and they're like non-educated parents, like from the peasants class.
Yes, yeah.
So that'd be all they'd know, really. But she was kind of grown-up woman, but she was just a victim of circumstances. It was a very patriarchal community that she lived in, and she was. It was just a tragedy. She was a fine, independent woman, and this happened to her.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So the play itself, does it focus on her last days, or do you take a broader look at the character?
Yeah. Both, really.
Both,
take a broad look at the character, talk about, you know, maybe it just touches on her relationship with her parents and Mike, and like the priests and the local parish priest, and, you know, with Hannah, focus on Hannah and her part that she had to play. Hannah was her cousin. So it's kind of focuses on all of the above.
Yeah. So it started then as a shorter piece than it is today. And like, you obviously, you must feel really connected to her. You know,
do. Yeah. It just seems,
given that it's a one-woman show and that you're sort of doing everything, you really must feel like she's almost part of you at this stage.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Every time I do the play, it becomes more and more, I wouldn't say easier, but more familiar.
It's easier to slip into, I suppose.
Yeah, she becomes a more familiar character, as, you know, it does with everything. You become more familiar with it, and you discover things about her. And, you know, I have a few jokes in there, as I said before, and like, now they're kind of, people seem to be laughing more at them, rather than me just kind of saying them, and people might get them or they mightn't get them. And I'm just like, but the last few times people have gotten the jokes. So that's been really good. So she's kind of got, everything, practice makes perfect. And, you know, I do rehearse coming up to a show for a couple of weeks. But I try to kind of, in between shows, I have to kind of let her rest. Because, and then kind of when you're on stage, you just kind of, you have to pay attention all the time. You can't zone out or let go, but yeah, like you just kind of go along with the ride. And then like the audience, it also depends on the audience, because in my last couple of shows I was back of a pub and the audience were really close to me.
Okay.
So that was lovely.
Yeah.
And like, you know, you could talk to loads of people.
Oh, because you can get really get close to them, even their reactions and things. Yeah.
And so then like, or in like really large theatres, you're just like, there is definitely a barrier there. Yeah. But you still try to talk to people, and it depends.
Trying to make it intimate, I suppose, with just you. Yeah.
So, but like I had really good audiences. I've always had good audiences, to be honest, because some of them have been big, some small, but they've all been interested in the story.
That's it. It's fascinating. It's a great hook. Like, she's a great hook as a character to get you, you know. you've carried it to loads of different venues now at this stage.
Yeah.
So how many places have you been?
Well, I've just done it around. I was doing a count up how many times I've done it, and I think 18 times. And so I premiered in the Junction last year. Then I did in the Clonmel Junction. I had Nulla Keeley took a chance, and she was really kind. And I got on as one of the homegrown heroes. And then I took to the Galway Fringe Festival, and they're lovely there. Like, I did my master's in Galway in drama and theatre, and I actually won Best Actress at the Galway Fringe 2018.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So that was really, and then I took it up to Kilkee, and then I just travelled to different theatres with it. I think I took a bit of a break for a while there, and then I was just focusing on other projects. Then in January and February I took it around. I did St. John's Theatre in Listowel. I did Friarsgate Community, St. John's Theatre in Listowel. They've always been so supportive of me. I did my first version of the play there because I was in Kerry. I was doing a film and broadcasting course when I was there, so I was just like doing loads of technical stuff, but I was just like, I need to do something kind of with writing, and so I wrote it. So it was more like just an escape out of technology more than anything.
I hear you.
Yeah. So then, so I took Friarsgate, Kenmare.
Yeah, you've been all over with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's excellent.
Waterville, actually, that was a lovely little theatre in Waterville. I had a lovely time there. Kilmallock. Then I went to the Source. Brendan Maher, he's always been. I did the Source for Bealtaine.
It's a nice little theatre as well.
Yeah, it's huge. So the Source is a brilliant theatre because, like, it's very intimate, but it's big. But the stage and lighting was amazing. Like, it took it to another level with the stage, with the lighting, that you wouldn't really kind of, because it's brilliant doing it anywhere, but when you've kind of, like, me and the lighting guys just kind of went to town on all the drama.
Fantastic. Yeah,
So, like,
brilliant.
And that was kind of, and then I did it in, then Kinsale Arts Week. They were lovely. They're fabulous.
Yeah.
And I met a guy who was actually doing the Junction, who was doing Ulysses, Robert Bogan. And Ulysses, and he loaned me his light, so a light for it. So that was brilliant.
Excellent.
And so I'm just back now, and I'm booked in for Culture Night, actually. And I'm also...
Where will Culture Night be? In the area?
In the Clonmel Museum. So you can see it there.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes. I was raging that I missed it.
Yeah.
Sure, better again. I'll have to sneak out for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a completely fascinating story.
And
because you inhabit it and you wrote it yourself, and does it change you, to get that involved with, or are you detached about it? I mean, I don't know if I could be.
You can't be not attached to it, but you have to have a kind of, you can't go around being tragic all the time.
I know, but you think of, like method actors or whatever, the whole Daniel. You have to kind of inhabit.
Yeah, you get upset. It's the stage is like, without sounding too pretentious or my own bone.
No, I'm just so interested in.
Yeah,
like,
it's just the kind of the living space. Like, there's this kind of, it's just the living space that is the stage, whether it's a huge stage or at the back of a pub. That's where all the magic happens. And I try not to bring all of what happens on the stage into real life, because then the magic is lost. Like, you're just kind of, and you look like a bit of a fool, like going around saying, "No, I'm in Brigid." Like, once I was in Waterville, and I was just waiting to go on stage, so I was like doing my breathing exercises. And I was just in the wings, and the dressing room is just off the wings, but it's all in black. Yeah. So, and then I'm all in black for Brigid, and I was sitting, I had brought a seat, so I was just sitting in the wings, and I looked like kind of, and then the woman who was doing the tech just walked in behind the curtain. And then I knew she was going to knock on the door, so I just put my hand up.
Frightened the life out of her.
You're frightened the Jesus out of her. And then, like, we both were skitting laughing. And she said, are you ready? And I was like, yeah, I am. So, like, I had to go from skitting laughing to being very somber. Because my first, like, I'm quite somber first.
Yeah.
And then, like, I crack a joke. But, yeah, so, like, you have to, like, be able to kind of take the...
Turn it on and off.
Yeah,
well.
turn it on and off. You just can't take yourself too seriously. Because, you know... At the same time, like, you don't want to be insufferable to be around.
Yeah.
You don't want to be, like, known to have big notions, and, like, then you're going out to the car with all your props. And then, like, oh, she has notions now, or, like, her notions are gone, you know, because you'd be kind of just dragging things up and back, and then you'd be like, right, just... Any questions?
That's another thing. You, in terms of staging it, like, is it really a sparse set? Is it just, can you carry it from A to B?
It's getting sparser as it goes, to be honest. It's getting sparser as it goes. When I first did it in Clonmel, I had this huge dresser and a couple of tables, but this huge dresser that I got belonged to my granduncle and was in his things, and we brought it down and we put some paper, and it looked fantastic. Myself and Catherine McVicker, who directed me, were painting it on the day and going outside and painting it in the blazing heat. And and then we were pulling it in, and then we had different ones. But and then I was in Galway, I was putting together this set every day, this little kind of, like, I was just going in with a little screwdriver and making it every day and tightening it up and putting it together. But, like, as the story develops, I become less reliant on kind of what it looks like, because the show, every time we do it, becomes different, becomes better. So then, so you'd have to kind of, you couldn't take yourself too seriously when you'd be dragging and painting your props. And when I was doing that, I had to stand, because it would be in a pub and no raised seating.
Okay.
Because normally I usually sit for parts of it. So then I had even for the Q&A, I always usually have a Q&A at the end, because that's, people are very interested.
Yeah.
To asking questions and everything. And then, even then, I had to stand, and I was shattered. I'm shattered after every performance. It doesn't actually hit me until everything, I'm finished, like, and then about half an hour after, I just sit down and I'm shattered. And, like, I use up so much energy that I can't really, like, go for a walk, or I can go for a small walk or go for, like, a cycle after, maybe a small walk before. But I remember once having the bright idea of going for a really big jog once, and then going into the car and then just doing that. By the time performance came around, because it's in the tech and everything, like I was telling him about lighting, I was just shattered. So, like, I had to down, like, a can of Coke and a can of Coke, like, and a Snickers, and I was like, okay, I just have energy to have it. And, thank God, like, Coca-Cola was ever invented. So, I just...
Do you feel that pressure that it's just you, or is that really...
Oh,
is that empowering, kind of liberating, that it's just you?
It keeps you on your toes.
Yeah,
it does keep you on your toes, and it's good. But you should be really on your toes. You can't really relax on stage. You shouldn't relax, but it keeps you on your toes. Yeah, it does.
I'd say so. Yeah.
And but that's the thing. People are like, "How do you remember all your lines?" And I just like, they're like, "You're talking for 50 minutes," and I'm like, "It's just ingrained." Like, you wrote them, and then you're just listen to them constantly. You record your voice and listen to them constantly, then repeat after yourself. So, like, that's where they just get ingrained. But people are just like, then, like, you might forget your lines, so you might go and, like, just see your props. See, this is why props are handy as well. You kind of, like, you handle a prop, and then you're just, like, looking at it thoughtfully, and people are like, wow, she has something to do with this prop. It's important to her.
Written on the back of it.
No, it's important to her. It's the character of this prop. And in my mind, I'm just like, okay, what's my fucking line? Where am I? And then you're like, oh yeah, haha, and then like go on. I remember I was in doing a show before, and the tech guys behind me were like, I knew I kind of put one paragraph before another one should have been, but then I rewounded my way and found my way again, and then but I could see the two tech guys in the background just looking at their skirt going, where the fuck is she? Like,
the panic setting in, yeah. No, it's a great thing to be able to do, to just cover that up and
gloss loads over of tricks. Like, it's not, you can't take yourself seriously if you're just like saying, where's my trap? So like, you try your best.
So will Brigid carry on now? We haven't seen the last of her, obviously. She's coming. No, we're going to see her again Culture Night.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a very good play. I worked really hard on it. I'm very proud of it. It's something that I can say is it is a very good play. So I'm going to be trying to do it for the next 10 years, I'd say. Get that much out of it. And then, I will, hand it over to someone who...
Well, like you said, the
would
way
ever be interested in doing it.
Developed over time into something else again. Imagine where it'll go. Yeah. From here. Yeah. It could definitely fly on an international level because...
Yeah, because I'm working on another play. It's the historical character. I don't want to get too much details just in case I change my mind. But I actually got the Tipperary County Council bursary for the Tyrone Guthrie Centre.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I'm just back from there a couple of weeks, and it was a wonderful place. Yeah. It's just this beautiful hub of creativity in this beautiful Victorian house, and got given this lovely study, and my bed was in there, and just so many books around the place, and the people you meet are just fascinating, and some would be at the start of careers, some would be in the mid, and some of them are just all different. You'd have artists there, writers, musicians, and just really lovely people, and nobody would have notions there.
Everyone's the same, and
everyone's the same. They wouldn't, and you'd be talking about funny things, and you might see each other at breakfast time or lunchtime, but you definitely have to meet at dinner. Yeah, and the food there is amazing. It's all made for you. It's the best food.
Wow, sounds excellent.
I put up about a stone, I'd say, but and there's a lake there, and you go swimming in the lake every morning.
Oh my goodness!
I wrote some good stuff there. So I just need to write some more good stuff. I have another.
Is it important, do you think, to have that type of space? It
is, because it's such dense forest and woodland. So you might be, what I do if I write, I talk away to myself, and if I think this is good, I write it down and do it, and I act what I talk in ways that I think would be handy to her. Yeah. And then it's just searching for inspiration. But you could write 15, 16 pages of paper, and you might come up with a good paragraph. Yeah. That's it. With a good paragraph,
isn't it? Yeah.
One of my best paragraphs I came up with was on the second last day, and my mum is would look at my work and say, right, this is good. And after my first draft that I did, she was like, it's a start, Eve, it's a start. I know it's a start, Mum. But I did this paragraph. Yeah. So, and then she said, yeah, I liked it. I liked what you did here. So now I've gone around 4 paragraphs to work on. But
isn't it great to have somebody that you can, especially someone close to you?
Oh yeah, I'd be lost without her, to be honest. She came up there on to help me with the Clonmel Arts Festival, and she's just she was there to help me with scenery and kind of calm me down because there'd be other shows on before me, and there's this show called Daisy. It was about a farm or something, and there was some big earth in the middle of the stage. I was I had a bit of a drama, so you can't take yourself too seriously. I had a bit of a dramatic episode, and I was like, what was I doing? I'm on in an hour in 40 minutes. And then she was, because it was in a room of a pub, which is beautiful, it's Lorting Sale, it was 300 years old, it was the oldest building in Kinsale. She was going up and down, the kind of, if people came in, she was like, shh. And then on the last night, actually, she just was there the first night, and she doesn't like going to see. She loves she likes the show, but she gets very nervous.
She gets nervous for you.
Yeah, for me. And my sister is the same. She won't go and see the show either.
That's
because
amazing.
She gets so nervous. She has a heart attack. She's just like, I can't see it.
Yeah. Hilarious.
And I understand it. Yeah.
That's it. They obviously feel so involved and involved with you that they can't detach enough to
they nearly nervous breakdowns. But and the third night they were just like it was because it was Arts Week, and outside there was somebody playing, so I came in and I was being all serious, and then I'd give a dramatic pause, and then out in the background you could la 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 ba ba la 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 la.
No.
Then I'd have to start and then Mike did this, and it was la 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 ba la.
Oh
So
my God.
Thankfully they stopped, and somebody brought a child in, so. Which was I thought, okay, well, she really wants to see the show.
Yeah.
So we couldn't begrudge her. And I incorporated the child crying into the show.
Yeah.
Then after about 10-15 minutes, they stepped out. So, it was a pity that they had to go.
But still, probably less of a distraction to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really look forward to seeing it in September Eve on Culture Night.
September 20th.
September 20th.
The County Museum.
In the County Museum, okay. And the museum is should be just opened after the refurbishments at that stage. So you'll be in a lovely...
So I just contacted Julia Walsh wondering if they were interested, because I remember seeing a concert there a couple of years ago for Culture Night then.
It's excellent.
So she was really helpful and nice, and she she said, yes, we'd really like to have you.
Excellent. So that'll be the next performance of it?
Yeah, I hope to get a couple more. I'll let you know. I'm my own producer, so I've been off because I've just been a bit busy doing other stuff. But I'd love to find a really good producer, if anybody is out there. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually just been hired by a historical society.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, to do one in November for a secondary school. So hopefully the secondary school will be good and not like my secondary school used to be. People came in.
No, that'll be excellent.
Yeah.
That'll be excellent, yeah.
So hopefully they'll be good and quiet and nice.
Okay, well, best of luck with it all, and do keep in touch with us and let us know what's happening, okay? Alright, it's lovely to talk to you.
You too.
And talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. I was never a singer, but my mother, she loved to hear me sing. Married 8 years and no sign of children. You're not even a proper woman. I'm the witch. I'm the fairy woman. I'm the poor wretch that was burned to death by her mad husband. He would never forget the wrongs that he had done me.
Well, that was just a very small clip of Eva Mahony as Brigid Cleary, and a little taster of what you can expect from the performance in the County Museum here in Clonmel in September. Thank you all so much for listening. If you'd like to get in touch with the podcast, the Gmail address is southttipartspodcast@gmail.com. That's southttipartspodcast@gmail.com, and I'll speak to you all again in 2 weeks.